Showdown time! You lose. Ah! Eee! I seem to be in a bit of trouble. Something like that. Dead. Someone hit him. Hard. Me? Please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should it come to that. Our protagonist, Apollo Justice, immediately brings panic energy to the room, and Christoph Gavin calms it down. Christoph here is Apollo's boss and mentor, but the defendant in this case has requested Apollo to lead his defense in particular. My name is Apollo Justice. If it isn't clear already, I'm a new attorney, and today is my first trial. Not that I'm worried or anything. The defendant has been accused of murder. My boss wants to help him out, of course, and so do I. I mean, there's no way he did it. Not him! No way! The client seems chillest of all, but his cool demeanor doesn't make Apollo any less nervous. Still, the hooded man ensures Apollo that he's the only one who can find him innocent. The trial begins, and Winston Payne reveals himself to be the prosecutor. For the past 3 games, he's been the plaintiff of the opening act, and it seems that he, along with their judge, maintain the presence here. Winston is a pushover, but Apollo's still no less nervous. When the defendant enters the courtroom, we learn that there is a third returning character. This is truly an unfortunate turn of events. I'm sorry we had to meet again under these circumstances. Long time no see, Mr. Wright. For the second time in a row, this game's intro case features its original protagonist, Phoenix Wright, as its defendant. The previous game, Trials and Tribulations, looked into Phoenix's past and his first meeting with his eventual boss, Mia Fey. This time, however, we see a Phoenix far into the future, wearing a sweatshirt instead of a suit coat and playing piano instead of playing detective. Just what could have caused this former ace attorney's fall from grace? Winston explains the case. The crime occurred at the Borscht Bowl Club, the restaurant at which Phoenix works as a pianist. It seems that a bottle of not wine from the restaurant was used as the murder weapon. The victim, named Shotty Smith, doesn't seem to have any past connection with the defendant, but Winston shows the court a photo of the victim knocked out in front of a table, poker chips and cards strewn about. It seems that Phoenix doesn't just play piano at the restaurant. As you can see, a game of poker was in progress at the scene of the crime. Wait a second. Isn't poker gambling? That's a crime in and of itself. Indeed, it appears the defendant has fallen to become the basest sort of criminal. Is it true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim? Yet it was only that, a game in the purest sense. A competition, Your Honor. Competition? Yes, a test of wits, a silent clash of passions. Only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. Phoenix stays silent as the court briefly debates the morality of his poker playing before being asked to testify about how the game went down. For those unfamiliar with the Ace Attorney games, the main gameplay loop is cross-examination. My weapons, press and present. Find any inconsistencies, any lies in the testimony, and reveal them to the court. That is cross-examination. Learn it, know it, do it. Inconsistencies? Lies? Phoenix Wright? As if. Phoenix Wright would never lie, and it's up to me to prove it. Through Phoenix's first cross-examination, we learn that he's played poker for around 7 years, and has an undefeated record. We also learned that the poker room used to be a black market hideout, with some secrets to it that aren't relevant just yet. Christoph continues to wax poetic about the blue cards in the room, and Phoenix points out that 2 decks were used on that night, one red and one blue. Phoenix claims not to have touched the murder weapon, but we have our first objection. It turns out the bottle used to kill Shotty Smith, in fact, does have Phoenix Wright's fingerprints. Worse yet, his prints are upside down, the exact position you'd have to hold a bottle in to kill somebody. Apollo begins to panic, but Christoph reassures him that all will be okay. He reveals to the judge, and us, that Phoenix went upstairs and was the one who informed the police of the murder. Further showing off his attention to detail, he's able to reason that the prosecution has a witness prepared, and Winston calls her to the stand. The camera reveals a shy-looking girl in a Russian parka, holding a plate with obvious anxiety. Ahem. Now, the prosecution. Wait a minute. Would the prosecution care to explain the witness's, Paraphernalia? Yes. She is a professional, Your Honor. Those are merely the tools of her trade. And that would be? My name is Olga Orly. I am employed as waitress in Borscht Sport Club restaurant. Then, why the camera? Of course, it is my pride to serve borscht at his main naming restaurant, but I also perform, how it is said, other service. I take it one of these other services is taking the customer's pictures. Like for example, this one. It seems Olga took a picture of Shadi and Phoenix dining together. Not long after, she reveals that she was indeed in the basement with the victim and the defendant when the murder occurred. Now it's Olga's turn to testify, and our turn to cross-examine her. Olga testifies that Phoenix strangled the victim, but Apollo is quick to point out the bottle is the cause of death. Still, Olga insists that Phoenix reached for Shadi's neck. She also claims that Shadi had a locket around his neck that night, but a photo of the victim's wound shows no such locket. Everyone comes to realize what this means, and the judge asks about Phoenix's locket, to which he says holds a picture of his daughter. Though there are a few contradictions in Olga's testimony, the results of the poker game are still unknown. Olga testifies that the defendant had lost the poker game, and Winston claims that such a loss would make for an easy murder motive. A photo shows each player's chips at the end of the game, which come in two sizes of colors. However, upon closer inspection of the picture, Phoenix's chips seem to have been of a higher value than Shadi's, ergo he had won the game. However, Olga interjects. Now she claims that Phoenix had cheated in the last hand. When pressed, she claims that Shadi's hand had 3 aces and Phoenix's had 2. But the photo of the chip shows that Shadi only had 2 aces. 4 aces in play is possible, if a bit unlikely. But she insists that a 5th ace was present in the last hand, and Apollo decides to examine Shadi's hand in more detail. Very well. Mr. Payne, if you would. Very well. Well, time's a-wasting. Get to it, Justice. Yes, sir! When examining evidence, be sure to view it from all sides and angles. Try using the buttons to turn it every which way, and X and Y to zoom in and out. That should give you a better perspective on the case. Okay, let's do this! Well, what? Your Honor, look at this! One of the victim's cards. The back is a different color. That's impossible. But I put that card in right set. What was that, Miss Orley? No, yet. I merely said, I have. Your Honor. But Mr. Gavin, yes? Tell me, what is the easiest way to cheat at poker? To cheat? I'll tell you. One merely needs a friend, a comrade, shall we say. The dealer. Wait, so you mean... This witness, Ms. Orley. She's the cheater. A professional, I'd wager. Yes! Apollo takes his chance to take the offensive, using Olga's slip-up to claim that she was in cahoots with the victim. Not only this, but that such a connection would give her reasonable motive for murder. The judge is about to call the trial for the day, but the prosecution will need to make further inquiries. Objection! Phoenix refers back to the differently colored card in Shadi's hand, and asks Apollo who could have slipped that card in, and when. Swapping a wrong colored card during the game would be far too obvious a cheat, so the swap clearly happened after the murder. But as for who would have made such a mistake, it wouldn't be reasonable that Phoenix or Olga could have. So, Phoenix raises a distinct possibility that, in addition to the two of them and Shadi Smith, a 4th person visited the crime scene that night. The judge calls a recess, and Kristoff heads to his chambers, leaving Apollo and Phoenix to chat for a bit. Phoenix shows that the picture inside his locket has a red-clad girl in a top hat, supposedly his daughter, and, even more mysteriously, dodges Apollo's next question. When Apollo asks whether he cheated on the night of the murder, Phoenix references his past. We still know little about what happened to him, but it's likely that some sort of dirty trick was at the center of it all. He moves on and points out the importance of perceiving the body language of one's opponents, both in poker and in trials. He points out that Olga, for instance, had a habit of touching her neck when she spoke. He reassures Apollo that he has the power to finish this case, and the recess ends. Halfway through the game's supposed tutorial case, so much intrigue has already been built up. The intro alone is much slower and more cinematic than any from previous games. The opening shot paints, quite literally, the darkness that looms over this game, and we aren't even given a single name or face. It's almost as if the hands shown aren't even from the game at the Borscht Bowl Club. And speaking of hands, just who would have, and who could have, replaced the fifth ace with a blue card? It doesn't seem like it could have been anyone involved with the case, but is there really a possibility that someone else was at the crime scene? And just what happened to Phoenix? Why is his outfit so casual?